In the beginning there was chaos, and from that endless void came power, beauty, and divine madness.
And so, from the very flames themselves, great Zeus appeared before them, descending upon the trembling earth.
Across the ages, mortals have told stories of gods who ruled the sky, the underworld, and even the depths of human emotion. In this journey through ancient myth, brought to life in animation, we'll witness the rise of mighty Kronos, the rule of Hades, the brilliance of Apollo, the wild spirit of Dionysus, and the dark enchantment of Hecate, the goddess of magic and shadow. Each one carries a legend carved into time, shaping the very soul of Greek mythology. So step into the realm of the immortals, where gods are born, fates are broken, and legends never die. Kronos. Long before Olympus rose to dominate the heavens, before Zeus wielded thunder with unrelenting might, before Hera watched with calculating grace from her throne, Poseidon stirred the oceans with tridents of power, and Hades claimed the shadows beneath the earth, there was another king, a being whose name would echo through eternity, Kronos. He was not an Olympian, not a god of light or justice, but a titan, born of a darker, older generation, a time when the cosmos itself was untamed, wild, and ruled by forces far older than reason or law. Kronos ruled not with mercy or fairness, but with ambition, cunning, and a hunger that would shape the fate of gods and men alike. His story is one of ambition sharpened into cruelty, of trust shattered by fear, of paradise turned into a cage of paranoia. In his hands, time itself became a weapon. In his shadow, the cycles of creation and destruction played out with relentless inevitability. Kronos devoured his own children, believing this would secure his throne. Yet in doing so, he unknowingly sowed the seeds of his downfall. From this horrifying act of power and despair emerged the very gods who would overthrow him and give birth to a new age, the Olympians. This is not just a story of family or betrayal, it is a story of destiny, of the eternal struggle between order and chaos, and of a king whose terrifying rule would forever shape the heavens and the world below. This is the saga of Kronos, the titan who defied time, yet was ultimately bound by it. Origins of Kronos. Kronos' birth came amid the primeval tension of the universe. Uranus, the limitless sky, and Gaia, the fertile earth, were primordial forces whose union produced the first generation of titans. These beings embodied the very elements and laws of nature. Hyperion, the sun; Queos, intellect and inquiry; Oceanus, the encircling waters; Themis, divine law; Mnemosyne, memory; and Kronos, whose destiny would intertwine with power, fear, and prophecy. Yet Uranus, for all his grandeur, was cruel and fearful. He saw in his children not allies, but threats. His paranoia was most severe toward Gaia's monstrous offspring, the Cyclopes with their single blazing eye, and the Hecatoncheires, giants of immense strength, 50 heads and 100 hands each. Finding them grotesque and dangerous, he imprisoned them deep within Gaia, locking them away in the darkness of the earth. Gaia, racked with pain at their suffering, seethed with sorrow and rage. Every act of oppression fueled her determination to see Uranus overthrown. From her own substance, Gaia forged a weapon of unimaginable power, a sickle of unbreakable adamant, sharp enough to sever the very essence of a god. She called upon her Titan children, urging one to strike down their father. One by one, they refused, frozen by fear of defying the sky itself. One alone accepted. Kronos, ambitious, daring, and calculating, took the sickle into his hands. He would act where others hesitated. He would commit what no other dared, the first act of filicide in the cosmos, and with it, reshape the universe forever. The castration of Uranus. The night of rebellion arrived. Uranus descended upon Gaia as he had countless times before. Kronos lay in ambush, hidden in the shadows. At Gaia's signal, he struck. The sickle bit into divine flesh, and Uranus was castrated in a single decisive act. His cries echoed across the cosmos, shaking heavens and earth alike. From the blood that fell to Gaia emerged new entities, the Furies, spirits of vengeance, the Gigantes, towering and warlike, and the Meliae, nymphs of ash trees. And from the genitals cast into the sea arose Aphrodite, the goddess of love, desire, and beauty, a being born of violence and transformation. This act marked not only the overthrow of Uranus, but the liberation of the Titans from tyranny. Yet even in triumph, Kronos inherited the shadow of a curse.
A sun will rise to cast you down, just as you.
Uranus's prophecy lingered. The son who seized power by overthrowing his father would himself be cast down by one of his own. From that moment, fear became Kronos's constant companion, shaping every choice he would make. Appearance and symbolism. Kronos was a figure of formidable presence. Unlike the idealized Olympians, who resembled humans in their depictions, Titans were vast and primordial. Kronos is often represented with his sickle, symbolizing both the act of rebellion and the inevitability of harvest, of beginnings and endings. In later Roman depictions as Saturn, he was portrayed as an aged figure with a scythe, a symbol of agriculture and the relentless passage of time. Art reflects his duality. In some depictions, he is powerful, youthful, and decisive, the Titan who changed the cosmos. In others, he is aged, gaunt, a figure of paranoia and inevitability. The most haunting vision comes in Francisco Goya's 19th century painting, where Kronos devours his children, a twisted embodiment of fear and inevitability. Through his appearance, myths communicate the essence of his character. Creation intertwined with destruction, abundance shadowed by terror. Family and relationships. Kronos's family ties defined his destiny. He was one of 12 Titans, siblings bound by blood and cosmic purpose: Hyperion, Coeus, Oceanus, Themis, Mnemosyne, and others. Each represented primordial forces shaping the cosmos, yet none dared challenge Uranus as boldly as Kronos did. His consort, Rhea, was both sister and queen, and through her he fathered the Olympians: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. Yet prophecy overshadowed family. Consumed by fear of being overthrown, Kronos swallowed each child at birth, a horrifying act of devouring his own lineage. Rhea, torn between love and horror, became the protector, secretly saving Zeus to fulfill the cycle of fate. Family, in the world of Kronos, is both the foundation of power and the instrument of inevitable betrayal. Even in his closest bonds, fear and destiny ruled supreme. Personality and powers. Kronos embodies cycles, creation and destruction, life and death, rulers overthrown, and sons surpassing fathers. His personality is marked by ambition, cunning, and paranoia. As a Titan, he ruled over harvest and fertility, wielding his sickle both as a tool and as a weapon. He was capable of immense benevolence. The golden age of plenty was his gift to humanity, but also extreme cruelty. Driven by fear of prophecy, Kronos is the paradox of power, a nurturer and a destroyer, a ruler and a devourer. He represents the inevitability of time, the inescapable cycles of life and death, and the tension between mortal desire and cosmic law. In every story he is bound by fate, reminding us that no power, however absolute, can escape the turning of the wheel. The Golden Age. With Uranus gone, Kronos assumed the throne and, alongside Rhea, ruled over a cosmos that would later be remembered as the Golden Age. Humans lived in harmony, free from toil, and the earth provided endlessly. Rivers flowed with abundance, fields yielded grain spontaneously, and honey dripped from trees. Mortals experienced gentle death, slipping into peaceful sleep rather than decay. In this paradise, Kronos' rule was one of quiet order, not wrath, a stark contrast to the later Olympian reign. Yet even in abundance, fear shadowed Kronos. Each newborn child was not a blessing but a threat. The prophecy of Uranus haunted him, and each act of devouring his children was an attempt to halt destiny itself. In the Golden Age, the world was radiant, but the ruler's paranoia cast a dark, persistent shadow.
In the Golden Age, the world was radiant, but the ruler's paranoia cast a dark, persistent shadow.
Kronos ruled both paradise and terror, embodying the tension between creation and destruction that defines his myth. The prophecy.
The blood of your sons will rise against you.
The prophecy that defined Kronos' reign was not just a warning. It was a shadow that hung over every action he took, shaping his rule with terror and inevitability. Long before his children were born, Uranus, the sky god and Kronos' father, had foreseen it. The youngest son would rise against him, toppling his power and rewriting the order of the cosmos. Kronos, hearing these chilling words, became obsessed, his mind consumed by fear and calculation. Every step he took, every decision he made, was dictated by the looming shadow of destiny. When his children were born, Kronos' solution was brutal. He swallowed them whole, hoping to snuff out the threat before it could grow. But with each act of devouring, the prophecy only tightened its grip. What he saw as control became a prison of his own making. This mythic warning illustrates a profound truth in Greek mythology. Destiny is an unyielding force, indifferent to fear, cruelty, or power. Even gods, mighty and immortal, cannot escape the threads woven by fate. Kronos' terror, cunning, and relentless violence were not just expressions of tyranny. They were the desperate measures of a being confronting the impossible. The prophecy set the stage for the rise of a new order, the birth of rebellion, and the eventual overthrow of the old generation. It reminds us that no matter how much one struggles against what is written, some truths cannot be avoided. In Kronos, we see the paradox of power. The more he tried to control his fate, the closer he came to fulfilling it, leaving behind a chilling lesson about fear, inevitability, and the cycles of time. Birth of Zeus. Rhea, weary and desperate, watched as Kronos devoured each of their children one by one. Every birth was a perilous event, a ticking clock of doom, as the prophecy loomed over their family like a shadow that could not be outrun. When Zeus was born, Rhea knew that hiding him was the only chance for the prophecy to be broken. Under the cover of night, she fled to the island of Crete, a place steeped in magic and guarded by the forces of nature. There, amidst mountains veiled in mist and caves carved by the earth itself, she placed her newborn son in the care of Gaia, the ever-watchful earth goddess, and a group of nurturing nymphs, tasked with raising him in secret. To deceive Kronos, Rhea wrapped a large stone in swaddling clothes, disguising it as the infant. When Kronos demanded to see his youngest child, she handed him the stone. Without hesitation, he swallowed it whole, believing the threat had been eliminated. Meanwhile, Zeus grew strong, nourished by the divine milk of the goat Amalthea, who fed him with a mixture of Earth's essence and celestial sustenance. In this hidden cradle of rebellion, Zeus learned the ways of the world, not merely through strength, but through cunning, patience, and wisdom. His growth was not only physical, it was a training in leadership, strategy, and the understanding of divine law, a preparation to challenge the very fate his father had tried to control. Zeus's preparation and gathering allies.
The cosmos reveal their secrets. Heed the whispers of the ancients, Zeus.
As Zeus matured, he was taught secrets unknown to mortal men or even most gods. He learned to read the patterns of the heavens, to hear the whispers of the earth, and to understand the hearts of beings both divine and mortal. He also came to know the stories of the Titans, the injustices of Kronos, and the suffering of his siblings swallowed into the Titan's stomach. This knowledge became the fire in Zeus's mind, the realization that his destiny was not only personal, but cosmic. To confront Kronos, Zeus needed allies. Guided by Gaia, he sought out the monstrous Cyclopes and the Hecate, whom Kronos had imprisoned deep within Tartarus. Though monstrous in appearance, they were beings of immense power and loyalty, deeply resentful of Kronos' cruelty. The Cyclopes, masters of forging and stormcraft, gifted Zeus the thunderbolt, a weapon of unmatched destructive force, crackling with the raw fury of the heavens. Poseidon, destined to rule the seas, received the trident, capable of summoning storms and earthquakes. Hades was given the helm of darkness, allowing him to move unseen and strike without warning. These gifts were more than tools. They were symbols of unity between those wronged by Kronos and those who sought justice, binding together the forces of nature, sky, and death in a coalition that would challenge the old order. The overthrow of Kronos. With his newfound power and allies, Zeus returned to confront his father. But the Titanomachy, the great war between Titans and Olympians, was not a simple battle of brute force. It was a clash of eras, a war between two fundamentally different visions of divinity. The Titans represented the old world, raw, primal, and immutable. The Olympians symbolized change, strategy, and adaptability. Mountains trembled as the two factions clashed, seas boiled under Poseidon's fury, and the sky itself roared with Zeus's lightning. Kronos, though a formidable combatant, had grown complacent in his rule. His paranoia had made him cruel, but also inflexible. He underestimated the cunning and coordination of his children, who fought not only for vengeance, but for the creation of a new world order. Battles raged for 10 long years, each day marked by the shaking of the earth, the splitting of the seas, and the fire of the skies. Titans and Olympians fell in torrents of fury, alliances were tested, and the very fabric of existence trembled under the weight of divine war. The release of the Olympians. A pivotal moment came when Zeus forced Kronos to disgorge his swallowed children. One by one, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon emerged fully grown, empowered by the magic of the earth and the wisdom they had gained in their father's stomach. This act of liberation was more than physical. It was a symbolic reclaiming of life, destiny, and freedom. Each Olympian brought their own strengths to the battlefield, their combined power tipping the scales against the Titans. This moment also revealed a deeper philosophical truth. Kronos, in trying to prevent the prophecy, inadvertently ensured it. His act of consuming his children had preserved them, making them invincible in ways he could never anticipate. Herein lies the eternal tension in the myths of Kronos. Every attempt to control destiny leads to the very outcome one fears. The Titanomachy intensified. The war escalated to unimaginable levels. Atlas, burdened with strength unmatched by mortals, faced off against the combined forces of Poseidon and Zeus, his rage echoing across mountains. Hyperion, lord of the sun, clashed with Apollo in a battle that seared the heavens themselves. Every Titan and Olympian faced their counterpart in a struggle of cosmic proportions. Earthquakes tore open chasms, volcanic eruptions reshaped landscapes, and storms reshuffled the seas. Yet amid the chaos, the Olympians' strategy and unity prevailed. Zeus's lightning became a symbol of coordination and foresight. Poseidon's trident controlled the tides of war, and Hades moved through shadows, striking with precision. The Titans' sheer power was undeniable, but they lacked the cohesion and adaptability of the younger generation. Kronos, though mighty, realized too late that ruling through fear could not withstand the ingenuity and resolve of those he had tried to suppress. The fall of Kronos. Finally, After 10 years of relentless combat, the Titans were defeated. Kronos, along with the most rebellious of his peers, was cast into the depths of Tartarus, a prison of unending darkness and torment, guarded by the Hecate. Others were bound or exiled, stripped of dominion over the cosmos. Zeus, now supreme, established the Olympian order, creating a new world governed by law, balance, and hierarchy. But Kronos' legacy did not vanish. Even in imprisonment, he remained a force to be reckoned with, a reminder that time, inevitability, and cycles of rise and fall are eternal. His story persisted,
In the beginning,
whispered in
there
the
was only
myths,
chaos.
celebrated in
Then
festivals,
came
and
Gaia
immortalized
and
in
Uranus and
art.
their son.
He became the symbol of time, of inevitability, of the destructive and generative powers that underlie the universe. The symbolism of Kronos. Kronos' story is not merely a tale of family tragedy or divine struggle. It's a metaphor for the natural cycles of life and death, power and vulnerability. He embodies the tension between ambition and fear, creation and destruction. The devouring of his children represents the inescapable passage of time, the way all things are consumed and replaced. Yet paradoxically, this very act creates new life, allowing the Olympians to rise and reshape the world. In art, Kronos is depicted with both terror and dignity. In mythology, he teaches that absolute power carries consequences, and that attempts to control destiny often bind one more tightly to it. Through festivals like Saturnalia, he is remembered as a figure of both reverence and caution, a god whose rule was both golden and monstrous, whose story continues to echo through history. The philosophical legacy. Beyond mythology, Kronos represents a universal concept, the inevitability of change and the cycles of existence. He is the embodiment of time, the force that spares no one, not even gods. His rise, reign, and fall mirror the rise and fall of civilizations, leaders, and empires. In him, we see that even divine beings are subject to destiny, that fear can lead to destruction, and that every end contains the seed of a new beginning. Kronos reminds us that history is cyclical, that power is temporary, and that creation and destruction are inseparable. His tale is both a warning and a reflection of the human condition, a myth that resonates with the rhythms of life, death, and renewal. Kronos' tale is a mirror of the universe itself, violent, fertile, and unyielding. A titan who rose by rebellion, clung to power through terror, and was ultimately undone by the very children he sought to destroy. Through him, we glimpse the paradox of divinity, the inevitability of time, and the eternal dance of fathers falling to sons. Kronos is not merely a god of the past, he is the cycle, the warning, and the story that continues to shape myth to this day. Hades. For centuries, Hades has been painted as a villain, the horned tyrant of hell, cloaked in flames. To the modern mind, the name summons images of fire and brimstone, horns and fangs, a dark throne made of bones, and the eternal torment of sinners, writhing in endless punishment. He is painted as the devil of the ancient world, but this is not the Hades the Greeks knew. In actual Greek mythology, Hades was never the torturer of souls. He never burned sinners in eternal flame or flayed mortals. For their sins, those roles belonged to others, to the Furies, who pursued oath-breakers and kinslayers, and to the judges of the dead, who weighed a soul's life and determined its fate. Hades' task was not cruelty, but order. He ruled the underworld with structure, silence, and an almost bureaucratic precision. Unlike Zeus, he did not seek worship or demand temples. Unlike Poseidon, he did not rise in storms to punish mortals. Unlike Ares, he did not revel in blood. Hades was necessary. He was feared, because death itself is feared, but he was not hated. The Greeks understood him not as a devil, but as a ruler of inevitability. The birth of Hades, son of Kronos and Rhea. Long before the Olympians ruled from their shining palace in the clouds, the world was in the hands of the Titans, immense and primeval forces of nature. Among them reigned Kronos, the Titan of time, and his queen Rhea. From them came 6 children destined to shape the cosmos: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and finally Zeus. But Kronos was haunted by prophecy. He was told that one day one of his children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his own father, Uranus. Paranoid and consumed by fear, Kronos committed a terrible act. The moment each child was born, he swallowed them whole, trapping them in the dark abyss of his stomach. Thus, Hades came into existence not under sunlight or starlight, but in suffocating darkness. He never saw the world as an infant. He never breathed free air or touched the earth. His earliest reality was confinement, silence, and a kind of living death inside his father's body. He was entombed before he ever lived. It was only when the youngest child, Zeus, escaped this fate, hidden away by Rhea in secret, that the chain of fate began to turn. When Zeus reached manhood, he returned in defiance, forcing Kronos to disgorge his devoured siblings. From the Titan's stomach emerged gods fully grown, reborn into the world they had been denied. For Hades, that moment of liberation was transformative. He knew what it meant to be swallowed, buried, and forgotten, only to rise again. The myths do not linger on what that meant for him, but the implication is clear. Hades understood confinement, silence, and inevitability in ways the other gods never did. These qualities would shape his entire reign as Lord of the Underworld. The Titanomachy, War of the Gods. Once freed, the 6 siblings faced a choice: remain in fear of their father or rise against him. They chose the latter, and thus began the Titanomachy, the 10-year war between the Titans and the Olympians. The earth split, the skies shook, and the seas boiled. It was not simply a battle, but a cosmic upheaval, a war that determined the order of the universe. Hades was no passive figure in this conflict. During the war, the Cyclopes, ancient smiths imprisoned by Kronos, were freed by Zeus. In gratitude, they forged 3 weapons of unimaginable power: the thunderbolt for Zeus, the trident for Poseidon, and the helm of darkness for Hades. This helm granted invisibility not only to mortals, but to gods themselves. While Zeus rained thunder from the heavens and Poseidon shattered mountains with tidal waves, Hades fought a different kind of war. He became the shadow in the battlefield, the unseen force that infiltrated camps, spread terror among the Titans, and launched ambushes that came from nowhere. His weapon was not brute force, but stealth and strategy. The myths are vague about the exact moment Kronos fell, but they agree on this. Without Hades's helm and cunning, the war might have lasted longer or ended differently. Invisibility allowed him to strike where others could not, and his silent presence on the battlefield broke the enemy's will. When the war ended and the Titans were cast down into Tartarus, it was in part because Hades had moved like a phantom among them, dismantling their defenses from within. Division of the realms, Hades, god of the underworld. When the Titans were defeated, the 3 brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots to divide the cosmos. Fate, not preference, assigned their thrones. Zeus took the vast heavens, Poseidon claimed the endless seas, and Hades descended to rule the realm beneath the earth, the underworld. This division was not meant as punishment or reward. It was balance. The universe needed rulers for sky, sea, and death, and Hades accepted his lot without protest. Where others saw darkness, he saw necessity. While Zeus basked in lightning and Poseidon roared in waves, Hades sat upon a throne, In silence, shaping a world few others would dare to rule, the underworld itself was not one place, but many. Elysium, the fields of eternal joy for heroes and the righteous. Asphodel Meadows, the resting ground for ordinary souls. Tartarus, a pit of torment for the wicked and for the Titans themselves. The rivers of the dead, Styx, Lethe, Cocytus, Phlegethon and Acheron, each a boundary between states of existence. Hades did not determine who went where. The judges of the dead decided a soul's fate. Hades merely ensured order was maintained and that no soul escaped. His role was guardian, ruler, and custodian, not torturer. Family of the dead, Hades and his court. Though he often stood apart from Olympus, Hades was not alone in his domain. Around him gathered figures who, like him, marked transitions between life and death, dream and waking, crime and punishment. Charon, the ferryman, carried souls across the river Styx, Thanatos, the personification of death, and his brother Hypnos, god of sleep, drifted through his halls. The Furies punished oathbreakers and crimes against kin. Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads, carried her torches freely in his realm. And at the gate stood Cerberus, the three-headed hound, untamed by all except Hades himself. These were not companions of revelry or feasting like the gods of Olympus. They were guardians of thresholds, keepers of boundaries. Hades surrounded himself not with flatterers, but with those who, like him, bore the weight of inevitability. Hades and Persephone, the queen of the underworld. No story defines Hades more than his union with Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Persephone was radiant, cherished by her mother and kept close, shielded from the turmoil of Olympus. But Hades desired her, not as a passing conquest, but as a queen to rule beside him. He did not seek Demeter's consent. Instead, he went to Zeus, Persephone's father, and gained his secret approval. One day, while Persephone gathered flowers in a meadow, the earth split open. From the chasm rose Hades in his black chariot, drawn by immortal horses. He seized her and vanished into the depths, the ground closing above them. The abduction sent shockwaves through gods and mortals alike. Demeter searched tirelessly for her daughter, and in her grief withheld the fertility of the earth. Crops failed, famine spread, and humanity withered. At last, the truth came out. Persephone was in the underworld, seated beside Hades on a throne as queen, but a law bound her there. Persephone had eaten 6 seeds of a pomegranate while in Hades's realm, and by divine law, anyone who consumed the food of the dead was forever tied to it. Zeus, pressured by Demeter's fury, brokered a compromise. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother, bringing spring and summer, and part of the year with Hades, bringing autumn and winter. Thus, through her descent and return, the Greeks explained the cycle of the seasons. But the myth reveals more. Persephone was not a silent captive. Over time, she grew into her crown, becoming a powerful queen who ruled beside Hades as his equal, judging souls and commanding respect. And unlike Zeus or Poseidon, Hades was faithful. Persephone was his one true consort, and his loyalty to her set him apart from almost every other Olympian. Orpheus and Eurydice in the underworld. Few mortals ever dared to descend into Hades' realm alive. Fewer still returned, but one story remains immortal: the tragedy of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was no warrior or king. He was a poet and musician. His lyre could calm beasts, sway trees, and soften stone itself. He loved Eurydice, and she loved him. Yet on their wedding day, fate intervened. A serpent's bite claimed her life, dragging her soul into the underworld. Most mortals would have despaired, but Orpheus did what no one else dared. He followed her into the land of the dead, alive and unarmed, carrying only his music. He crossed the rivers of Hades, lulled Cerberus into stillness, and moved the Furies to tears. Even the stern king and queen of the underworld were moved by his grief. Hades, who rarely yielded, did something unthinkable. He offered a second chance. Eurydice could return, but on one condition. Orpheus must walk ahead of her, and he must not look back until both reached the light of the living. Step by step, Orpheus climbed. Behind him was silence. No voice, no breath, no footsteps. Doubt gnawed at him, and just before they reached the surface, he turned. In an instant, Eurydice vanished. Hades had kept his word. Orpheus had not. What matters here is not only the tragedy of love, but the character of Hades. He did not trick Orpheus. He did not punish him beyond the agreed terms. He gave him a chance, something no god had done before. And when Orpheus failed, Hades allowed the silence to return. For in his realm, oaths mattered and endings were final. Hades and Sisyphus. If Orpheus represents the mortal who loved too deeply, Sisyphus represents the mortal who cheated too arrogantly. King of Corinth, Sisyphus was cunning beyond measure. He lied, he betrayed, and worst of all, he tricked Thanatos, death itself. When Thanatos came to chain his soul, Sisyphus ensnared him instead. With death imprisoned, no one could die. Battles raged without casualties, the old withered without release, and Hades' realm grew eerily silent. This imbalance enraged Hades, for his domain depended on the flow of souls. Eventually, Ares freed Thanatos, restoring death to the world, and Sisyphus was dragged to the underworld in chains. But the trickster had prepared yet another ruse. He instructed his wife not to perform burial rites. When he stood before Hades and Persephone, he claimed injustice, unburied, unprepared, wrongly sent. The rulers of the dead allowed him to return, to set things right. But once alive again, he refused to return. He laughed at gods and fate alike, yet no trick lasts forever. When Hades finally reclaimed him, punishment followed. Not fire, not lashes, but futility. Sisyphus was condemned to roll a boulder uphill, only for it to tumble back down for eternity. A punishment of repetition, not cruelty. For Hades did not need flames to enforce justice. Inevitability itself was enough. Heracles and the capture of Cerberus. Among the many labors of Heracles, none was more impossible than the 12th. To capture Cerberus, guardian of the underworld. Armed with nothing but his courage, Heracles descended alive into Hades' domain. He faced shadows, shades, and horrors. Yet when he reached the throne of Hades and Persephone, he did not demand or steal. He asked. Hades could have refused, struck him down, or unleashed fury. Instead, he offered a test. Heracles could take Cerberus if he could subdue the beast without weapons. Strength alone would decide. Heracles wrestled the monstrous hound, enduring its 3 snapping jaws and serpent tail, until finally he pinned it. He brought Cerberus to the surface, terrifying King Eurystheus, who begged for its return. True to his word, Heracles returned the guardian, and Hades accepted without spite. This myth shows a side of Hades overlooked in modern retellings. He was not a tyrant, not quick to rage. He honored strength, fairness, and oaths. Even when challenged by mortals, he upheld his word. Hades and his lovers, Mythia and Luce. Though Hades was known for his loyalty to Persephone, myths whisper of 2 women who left faint traces on his story. Mythia, a nymph of the river Cocytus, was said to have been a lover before Persephone. After Hades' marriage, Mythia boasted she would replace the queen. Persephone crushed her arrogance, transforming her into the mint plant. From bitterness came fragrance, and in funerary rites, mint became a herb of remembrance. Luce, another nymph, died and entered the underworld. Hades, struck by her grace, transformed her into the first white poplar tree in the Elysian fields. Its leaves shimmered silver, light on one side, shadow on the other, a symbol of the balance between life and death. These stories are small compared to the myths of Zeus or Apollo, but they reveal Hades' difference. He did not scatter illegitimate children across the world. He loved rarely, and when he did, memory, not conquest, remained. Theseus and Pirithous, trapped in the underworld. Not every mortal who descended was granted mercy. Theseus and Pirithous, emboldened by arrogance, attempted the unthinkable. They sought to kidnap Persephone herself. They entered Hades' hall, boasting of their plan. But Hades, instead of striking them down, welcomed them. He offered seats at his table. The moment they sat, they were bound to the chairs of forgetfulness, their bodies rooted, their wills dulled. Years passed, their punishment not fire or torture, but stagnation. Only Theseus was later freed, dragged away by Heracles. Pirithous remained, trapped forever in the silence he had mocked. Hades had no need to kill them. He simply let their arrogance collapse into eternity. Misconceptions: Hades versus Satan. Modern culture often mistakes Hades for Satan. Films, games, and comics show him with horns, flames, and a villain's smirk. But this is a distortion. In Greek mythology, Hades is not the punisher of the wicked. He is not the ruler of hell. He does not tempt, deceive, or torment. The Greeks distinguished carefully. Thanatos was death, the Furies were vengeance, the judges of the dead determined punishment. Tartarus was the pit of torment. Hades was ruler, custodian, keeper of order. His role was necessary, not evil. He did not seek followers or revel in cruelty. He ruled in silence, and even the gods spoke his name only in whispers, out of fear, not of malice, but of inevitability. Legacy of Hades. Unlike Zeus or Apollo, Hades had no grand temples. Worship was rare and discreet, performed through funerary rites, grave offerings, and whispered prayers. To call upon him directly was considered dangerous. Instead, the Greeks honored him through ritual, asking not for favor, but for peace. Hades was not loved, nor was he despised. He was respected because he represented the final truth no god or mortal could escape. The cycle of life ended with him, and through Persephone it began again each spring. His silence set him apart from the noisy quarrels of Olympus. Where other gods indulged in pride, lust, and chaos, Hades remained steady. He ruled without ego, without cruelty, and without complaint. And that is his paradox: feared yet just, silent yet absolute, necessary but never adored. The Greeks did not see him as the devil. They saw him as the one who waited, patient and inevitable, at the end of all journeys, not loved, not hated, simply eternal. Hades was never the villain. He was balance, inevitability, and order. While his brothers thundered across the skies and seas, he ruled in silence, reminding gods and mortals alike that every story, no matter how glorious, ends in his realm. If you've enjoyed this journey into the shadowed halls of the underworld, don't let it end here. Subscribe for more tales of myth and legend. Give this video a like to help it reach fellow seekers of ancient stories, and share it with anyone who still mistakes Hades for a devil in flames. Hecate. When night descended over the ancient world and silence wrapped itself around villages, people felt that they were never truly alone. The Greeks believed that something or someone moved in the spaces between shadows. At crossroads where three paths met, in doorways where homes opened to the outside world, and in graveyards where spirits stirred beneath the soil. a presence lingered. She held torches to cut through the darkness, with hounds at her side, their cries echoing like warnings to mortals. She was Hecate, the goddess of night, crossroads, witchcraft, and the hidden boundaries that mortals feared to cross. Unlike the radiant Olympians who sat upon golden thrones, Hecate was different. She was a goddess of liminality, the in-between, the places of mystery. She was honored with devotion, yet also feared as a bringer of uncanny power. Some saw her as a benevolent protector, guiding those who prayed with sincerity. Others whispered that to displease her was to invite curses, hauntings, or the company of restless spirits. In her hands lay duality, light and darkness, blessing and danger. She was never just one thing, and that is what made her unforgettable. Who is Hecate in Greek mythology? To understand Hecate, one must imagine not a goddess of one realm, like Poseidon with the sea or Demeter with the harvest, but rather a goddess of thresholds. She was the guardian of doors, gates, and pathways. Where choices were made, she stood silently, watching, perhaps guiding. Travelers at night would offer prayers at a crossroad shrine, fearful that without her favor, they might be led astray or attacked by wandering shades. Unlike most gods who demanded temples and large offerings, Hecate was honored in more personal ways. A family might place small tokens of food at the threshold of their home, a meal called Hecate's deipnon, to keep away malevolent spirits. At crossroads, offerings were left at night, never touched by human hands once placed. Dogs, her sacred animals, were given as sacrifices in her honor, their howls believed to signal her approach. She was a goddess who did not simply exist in the heavens, but lived in the fears and daily rituals of the people. She held dominion over the earth, sea and sky, not in the grand ruling sense of Zeus or Poseidon, but in a subtle and mysterious way. Her power was transition itself, the unseen thread that linked one realm to another. Sailors prayed to her for safe passage, mothers called on her during childbirth, and farmers sought her favor for fertile crops. Yet witches too invoked her, calling upon her authority over spirits, poisons, and spells. She was the torchbearer in the night, the keeper of keys to realms seen and unseen. Origins of Goddess Hecate. The origins of Hecate stretch into shadows deeper than those of Olympus. Ancient poets told us she was the daughter of Perses and Asteria, titans of destruction and starlight. From her father came an intensity of power, from her mother, the brilliance of night sky. Together, these influences shaped a goddess who could burn with fire yet glow with mystery. But scholars suspect her worship may be far older than Greece itself. Archaeological evidence suggests cults of Hecate appeared in Thrace, Anatolia, and Asia Minor, regions rich with goddesses of fertility, magic, and the underworld. To the Greeks, she may have been an adopted goddess, a foreign presence absorbed into their mythology, which could explain why she remained so independent of the Olympians' hierarchy. Her survival during the Titanomachy is itself a mark of her uniqueness. When Zeus rose against the Titans, most of their offspring were cast aside. Yet Hecate was honored. Hesiod's Theogony even records that Zeus did her no wrong, but instead granted her authority over earth, sea, and sky. Why? Perhaps Zeus recognized that her power was not one that could be conquered, for it flowed in spaces where no throne could reach. She was not a ruler, but a presence, subtle, unyielding, eternal. Thus she stood apart. Not Titan, not Olympian, but something in between. A goddess who crossed boundaries rather than ruled them. Hecate's symbols and appearance. Hecate's image, like her powers, shifted with time. In the earliest depictions, she was a solitary maiden, tall, graceful, torch in hand. The torch was more than a symbol of light. It was guidance, revelation, the ability to pierce the veil of darkness and reveal truths hidden from mortal eyes. Alongside the torch, she sometimes carried a key, signifying her role as keeper of doors. doors to the underworld, to mysteries, to hidden knowledge. Later art transformed her into something more striking, a triple-bodied goddess. Each figure, faced in a different direction, representing the past, the present, and the future, or perhaps three roads meeting at a crossroads. With three forms, she could see all paths, all possibilities, all fates. In one hand she might hold daggers, in another whips, in another torches. The imagery was powerful. Hecate as guardian of thresholds and choices, embodying the many roads a life might take. Her animals reflected her liminality. Dogs, especially black hounds, were her companions, howling as her presence drew near. Serpents, owls, and even horses were linked to her as symbols of power, death, and transition. The foods sacred to her, garlic, eggs, fish, honey, and bread, were left in nighttime offerings. These tokens were never taken back. To do so was to insult the goddess and risk misfortune. Through these symbols, Hecate was never simply a figure of beauty or power like Aphrodite or Athena. She was the embodiment of mystery itself, always just beyond human grasp. Hecate's family tree and relationships. Hecate's family ties were faint in Greek myth. She was the child of Perses and Asteria, but unlike most deities, she was not defined by marriage, siblings, or children. She had no divine consort, no myths of romance or offspring. This independence made her unusual. Hera was bound to Zeus, Demeter tied to Persephone, Aphrodite entwined with countless lovers. But Hecate stood alone. This detachment elevated her beyond the concerns of Olympian drama. She was not caught in feuds of jealousy or stories of betrayal. Instead, she drifted at the edges of myth, appearing not as a central player, but as a guiding hand, a helper, a force invoked at crucial moments. In society, however, her presence was deeply personal. Her worship extended into homes and villages in ways few Olympians could claim. Crossroad shrines, doorway altars, and family offerings tied her directly to everyday life. Families honored her monthly during the dark moon, offering meals not just to her, but also to the wandering dead she guided. These rituals kept her close and made her influence unavoidable. Her relationships were not of family, but of presence. She was the companion of Demeter in her search for Persephone. She was the guide of Persephone herself, standing at her side in the underworld. She was the patron of witches and sorceresses who invoked her name in secret rites. Through these roles, she became connected not through blood, but through mystery. Powers and roles of Hecate. Hecate's powers were as vast as they were paradoxical. She could guide or mislead, heal or curse, bless or destroy. With her torches, she illuminated the path for Demeter in the darkness. With her keys, she unlocked the passageways between realms. With her voice, she commanded spirits, ghosts, and phantoms to obey her call. She was invoked for protection, especially at night when dangers prowled. A mother might call upon Hecate to shield her child. A sailor would pray for her favor before a dangerous voyage. Farmers asked her blessings for fertile harvests. In these ways, she was nurturing, protective, and even maternal. Yet she also held the darker roles. She was the goddess of necromancy, of ghosts and spirits who wandered restless after death. Sorcerers called her name when crafting spells of binding, curses, or revenge. She ruled poisons and herbs, tools that could heal or kill, depending on how they were used. Her powers were not simply benevolent, but dual, unpredictable, reflecting the uncertainty of life itself. This duality made her indispensable. She was the one who stood in spaces no other deity claimed. When mortals felt themselves on the edge, between life and death, safety and danger, fortune and disaster, it was to Hecate they prayed. Hecate in the Titanomachy. During the Great War of Gods and Titans, Hecate's fate was different from most of her kin. As Zeus rose against Kronos and the Titans, many were cast down, imprisoned in Tartarus, stripped of their honors. Yet Hecate stood apart. Zeus not only spared her, but exalted her. According to Hesiod, she was given a share in all realms, sky, sea, and earth. This is remarkable, for Zeus rarely shared authority. He kept the heavens for himself, the seas for Poseidon, and the underworld for Hades. But Hecate was not bound to any single domain. She roamed freely, unchained, answering only to herself. Perhaps Zeus recognized her power was not one to be contained, for it dwelt in spaces unseen. Perhaps he knew that gods themselves needed her guidance in the dark. Thus, in the Titanomachy, Hecate emerged not as conqueror or conquered, but as something rarer, the eternal, untouchable goddess of thresholds, who survived not by force, but by mystery. Hecate and the abduction of Persephone. Among the many myths entwined with Hecate, none shines brighter than her role in the story of Persephone. When Hades, lord of the underworld, seized the young goddess Persephone and dragged her to the shadowed realm beneath the earth, the world above trembled. Demeter, her mother, wandered the earth in grief, letting the fields turn barren, the rivers dry, and famine creep into every village. In this darkness, it was Hecate who walked unseen alongside Demeter, with torches blazing. Hecate illuminated the path of sorrow and despair, guiding the grief-stricken mother as she searched for her lost daughter. Her presence was silent but steadfast, a quiet strength in the face of overwhelming loss. While Hermes later negotiated Persephone's release, it was Hecate who remained constant, a witness to the transition between worlds. She did not intervene with brute force but with guidance, offering light where mortals and gods alike found only shadows. Her role in this myth illustrates her nature perfectly, a goddess of thresholds, of transitions. She stands not in the center of power, but at the borders, at the edges where life and death, joy and sorrow, freedom and captivity meet. In the abduction of Persephone, Hecate becomes the quiet hand that steadies the trembling, the torch that pierces darkness, and the bridge between despair and hope. Hecate in the Gigantomachy. The Gigantomachy, the fabled battle between gods and giants, is often told in fragmented tales, yet Hecate's role is quietly fascinating. She did not charge blindly into battle like Ares, nor did she rely solely on strategy like Athena. Instead, she was an unseen force, a presence guiding heroes and gods alike, whispering warnings, offering visions, and holding dominion over the liminal spaces where giants lurked unseen. Her influence was subtle but critical. In myths, she aids those who honor her, tipping the scales without being the center of glory or conquest. This reinforces her archetype. Hecate is not the frontline warrior, but the unseen guide, the shadow in the corner of the battlefield that sees all paths and possibilities. Through this, mortals and gods alike learn that power is not always displayed in the clash of weapons. Sometimes it dwells in knowledge, intuition, and the unseen edges of the world. Hecate and the world of witches. Perhaps Hecate's most enduring legacy lies in her connection to witches. Long after the age of gods and titans, her worship continued in secret rituals, moonlit rites, and incantations whispered in hidden groves. Witches, seers, and sorcerers called her name to access the powers of night, transformation, and unseen knowledge. Hecate embodies the archetype of the wise, often feared woman at the crossroads, holding knowledge that others dare not touch. In magic, she represents mastery over boundaries, the thin veil between life and death, the conscious and unconscious, the natural and supernatural. Her triple form mirrors the triple goddess of later traditions, connecting the maiden, mother, and crone archetypes, each reflecting a stage of power, intuition, and transformation in this world. Hecate is teacher, guide, and protector. She is invoked in rituals of divination, herbal lore, and protective magic. Yet she is not a passive presence. Hecate demands respect, careful attention, and acknowledgement of her dual nature. Those who approach her with arrogance or frivolity risk misfortune, but those who honor her with reverence find guidance, insight, and a connection to forces beyond the ordinary. Hecate and Medea. The tale of Medea, the sorceress who defied kings and mortals alike, is intertwined with Hecate's influence. Ancient stories hint that Medea drew her knowledge from the teachings of Hecate herself. From poisons to protective charms, from summoning spirits to unraveling fate, Hecate's shadow looms over Medea's power. Medea's story shows the balance of Hecate's gifts. Knowledge is power, but it is also a responsibility. To wield magic is to navigate dangers, both moral and mortal. Hecate does not punish indiscriminately, but she rewards wisdom and punishes folly. Her guidance is not a guarantee of success, it is a light in the darkness, a map at a crossroads, and a reminder that choices have consequences. Triple Moon Goddess and Symbolism. In later traditions, Hecate became closely associated with the Triple Moon Goddess, Maiden, Mother, and Crone, representing the phases of the moon and the cycles of life. Her triple form is not merely visual but symbolic. Each aspect reflects a stage of power, intuition, and transformation. The Maiden is the spark of new beginnings, curiosity, and learning. The Mother represents nurturing, protection, and creativity. The Crone embodies wisdom, endings, and transcendence. Through this, Hecate embodies the eternal cycles of life and death, light and darkness, knowledge and mystery. Her torches illuminate these phases, guiding mortals through the darkness of uncertainty toward understanding. Those who honor her are invited to embrace transformation, to accept that life is a series of thresholds, each requiring courage, discernment, and reverence. Misconceptions about Hecate. Over time, Hecate's reputation became clouded with fear and misunderstanding. Some equated her solely with witchcraft, ghosts, or even malefic magic. In truth, she's far more complex. She is a guardian of thresholds, a guide through darkness, and a mediator between worlds. Her fearsome associations reflect the fear humans feel toward the unknown, the unseen, and the transitional. To know Hecate is to understand that darkness is not merely a threat, it is also a place of potential, insight, and transformation. Her image as malevolent or frightening is often a reflection of human anxiety rather than her true nature. Like the night itself, Hecate is both beautiful and dangerous, comforting and terrifying, a mirror to the duality of existence. Legacy of Hecate in modern times. Hecate's influence continues to ripple through culture, religion, and spiritual practice. Modern witches honor her at crossroads shrines, during dark moons, and in rituals seeking wisdom and protection. Artists, writers, and storytellers draw upon her image to explore themes of mystery, power, and transformation. Her torches still light the imagination, guiding minds to question the boundaries of reality and the unseen forces that shape life. Her legacy is not one of conquest, but of presence. She teaches that power is not always visible, that guidance can be subtle, and that true understanding often lies in the spaces between certainty and doubt. Hecate remains the goddess of transitions, illuminating paths for those willing to walk the edge of the known and the unknown. Hecate's influence in pop culture and literature. From Gothic novels to modern fantasy, Hecate's shadow stretches across storytelling. She appears as the archetypal witch, the mysterious guide, or the triple goddess whose knowledge challenges heroes and mortals alike. Her symbolism resonates with those seeking empowerment, wisdom, or a deeper understanding of life's mysteries, even in films and novels. Her presence carries the same tension as the myths, light and shadow, guidance and danger, knowledge and mystery. This continuity shows that Hecate's essence transcends time and culture, reaching beyond Greece into the collective imagination of humanity. Hecate and the philosophy of liminality. Perhaps her most profound gift is the lesson of liminality, the understanding that life exists in thresholds. Birth and death, beginnings and endings, decisions and consequences, all exist in the in-between. Hecate's domain is precisely this space, and by honoring her, humans learn to navigate uncertainty, face the unknown, and embrace transformation. Her torches light the crossroads of life, teaching that every choice is sacred, every moment is a threshold, and every shadow holds potential. Hecate does not promise comfort or certainty, but she offers clarity in the darkness, a steady hand at the edge of fear, and insight for those who dare to look beyond the ordinary. The eternal torchbearer. Hecate remains a goddess of mystery, magic, and transition. She's a torchbearer in the darkness, guiding souls through thresholds, both literal and symbolic. She is protector, teacher, and companion, standing at the crossroads of existence where mortal and divine, light and shadow, life and death meet. In honoring her, we remember that power is not always visible, that wisdom often lies in silence, and that the spaces between certainty and doubt are where true understanding is born. Hecate's torches continue to burn, casting light on paths unseen, inviting us to walk with courage, reverence, and awe. Don't let the mysteries of Hecate remain in the shadows. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to uncover more myths, magic, and secrets from the ancient world. Step into the unknown with us, and let the torches of knowledge guide your journey into the realms beyond. Dionysus. They called him the Liberator, the Twice-Born, the stranger from the East. He moved through torchlight and shadow with ivy at his brow, hair unbound, a staff of fennel tipped with a pine cone in his hand. Drums rolled like distant thunder, voices rose until joy and frenzy braided into one current, and at the center of that current stood him. Some swore he was gentleness itself, a god who dissolved sorrow with a cup and a song. Others learned he could be terror in human shape, a presence that snapped the thin threads of order and let the wild pour in. Either way, once he arrived, no one left unchanged. He was not like the other Olympians, who glittered in marble stillness atop their mountain. His realm was fluid, shifting like wine in a vessel, like the masks of an actor who wears a new self with each play. He walked among farmers and sailors, slaves and kings, women who defied their households, and men who broke the rules of their city. In every circle, he unsettled boundaries, joy and terror, sanity and madness, mortal and divine. He was Dionysus. Origins. His story begins with oaths and lightning. Zeus loved Semele, a mortal princess of Thebes. Hera, stung by jealousy, whispered suspicion into Semele's ear until the girl demanded to see Zeus as he truly was. Bound by promise, the god revealed himself, and the mortal body cannot hold a storm. Semele burned, yet a life remained within her. Zeus lifted the unborn child and sewed him into his own thigh until the time of birth. So the child came into the world twice, first from a mortal, then from a god, and the name Twice-Born took root. But Hera's rage did not end with Semele's ashes. She hounded the child, sending madness and threats to consume him. To shield the infant, Zeus placed him in the care of Hermes, who disguised him in girlish garb and carried him into secret places. Some say he grew among the nymphs of Nysa, hidden in forests where streams whispered lullabies and ivy tangled the rocks. There, amid the hum of bees and the damp smell of soil, the boy learned freedom before he learned fear. Other voices spoke of darker beginnings. In Orphic tradition, he was not simply the son of Semele, but an older divinity reborn. Zagreus, child of Zeus and Persephone, once held the promise of succession. But the jealous Titans tore him limb from limb, devouring his flesh until only ash remained. From that ruin, Zeus salvaged a spark, shaping it into a new form, Dionysus. In this telling, he is more than a god of wine. He is the cycle of destruction and renewal itself, the truth that life emerges from death. Whichever tale you follow, the pattern is clear. His birth is secret, his childhood scattered, his very essence a contradiction. Mortal and divine, fragile and immortal, hunted and yet unstoppable. From the moment of his first cry, he carried within him both the wound of loss and the promise of resurrection. Appearance. No single form defines him. The earliest artists carved him as a robust figure, bearded, crowned, shoulders heavy with authority. He looked like a ruler of vines, a harvest god who held dominion over soil and growth. His staff, the thyrsus, crowned with a pine cone, announced his power over vitality itself, but the centuries softened his image. Vase painters and sculptors began to show him as a youth, almost androgynous, his body lithe, his hair long and curling like dark waves of wine. His beauty was unsettling, the kind that draws admiration and unease in equal measure. His eyes glimmered, with duality, tenderness in one glance, frenzy in the next. His attire revealed his nature. Unlike the armored Athena or the regal Hera, he draped himself in flowing robes dyed in crimson and purple, the colors of ferment and revel. Around his brow twined ivy or vines bursting with grapes, as though nature itself crowned him. At times he wore the pelts of wild beasts, panther, leopard, bull, reminders that his divinity was not orderly, but untamed. Animals were never far. Panthers padded at his feet, serpents twined in the ivy at his shoulders, bulls pawed the ground. Where he passed, the air thickened with the scent of crushed grapes, of earth turned fertile, of fire and smoke. He was never fixed. One moment, a radiant boy. The next, a wrathful wanderer, crowned in ivy. Then, a beast-eyed god, radiating terror. His mutability was not weakness, but essence. Dionysus was transformation incarnate. Familial ties and companions. Dionysus's family ties were always fraught. To Zeus, he was a cherished son, born from the father's own body. To Hera, he was proof of betrayal, a living insult. Her hatred hounded him from infancy, forcing him into exile and wanderings far from Olympus. Perhaps that is why he found kinship more easily among mortals and outcasts than among the gods. Yet he was never without companions. Silenus, the old satyr with wine-stained wisdom, became his teacher and foster father, stumbling yet insightful, comic yet profound. Around him gathered satyrs with goat legs and mocking laughter, and maenads, women who abandoned loom and hearth for mountain rites. With ivy in their hair and wildness in their eyes, they danced themselves beyond reason, embodying the frenzy he inspired. Ariadne, abandoned princess of Crete, became his consort and queen. He crowned her not with sorrow, but with stars, placing her diadem in the heavens. Others drifted through his stories, youthful Ampelos, whose death birthed the grapevine, and nameless lovers of both sexes, testifying to a god who transcended mortal categories. Yet above all, his truest family were the outsiders, wanderers, revelers, the broken-hearted and the restless who found belonging in his rites. Personality, powers, and roles. To understand him is to hold contradictions at once. He was the god of wine, not the liquid itself, but what it did. Wine loosened the tongue, dissolved grief, birthed laughter, and blurred the strict edges of the self. But it also carried ruin, delirium, violence, collapse. Dionysus was both gift and danger. He ruled theater, where masks allowed mortals to step into other lives. The stage was itself a kind of intoxication, where illusion and reality mingled under the torchlight. Every Athenian tragedy and comedy opened with prayers to him, for performance was one of his sacred transformations. He was tied also to fertility, to the cycles of seed and harvest, growth and decay. The swelling of grapes, the return of spring after barren winter, the howl of wild beasts in the dark, all bore his imprint. Above all, he was the god of boundaries dissolving. Man and woman, joy and terror, mortal and immortal, he turned borders into doors. For those who welcomed him, he was a liberator, lifting burdens and offering vision. For those who resisted, he was madness, destruction, and divine retribution. His power was not predictable, it was essential. To deny him was to deny the forces that move beneath every life. Dionysus, in contrast to Apollo. Greek thought often paired him with Apollo, his seeming opposite. Apollo stood for order, clarity, logic, and discipline. Dionysus embodied chaos, passion, ecstasy, and dissolution. Yet the Greeks did not set them at war. They saw them as two halves of a greater whole. Apollo gave measure to song, Dionysus gave it soul. One without the other was sterile or destructive. Together they formed the spectrum of human experience, the daylight of reason and the midnight of rapture. Later philosophers, from Plato to Nietzsche, would return to this tension, naming it the Apollonian and the Dionysian, the eternal dance between order and chaos. Mystery cults and initiation. Public festivals of Dionysus were wild enough, but beneath them lay secret rites, the mysteries. These were not drunken gatherings, but carefully structured initiations. Worshippers adorned themselves with ivy crowns and fawn skins, carrying torches into the night. They chanted and danced, losing themselves in ecstasy, but the goal was not mere indulgence, it was transcendence. In Orphic tradition, these rites offered glimpses of the afterlife. Initiates hoped to be freed from the endless cycle of death and rebirth, to join Dionysus in a purified realm beyond the grave. Symbols of death and resurrection filled the ceremonies, wine pressed from crushed grapes, milk and honey flowing from the earth, sparagmos, the tearing apart of animals or symbols, followed by renewal. To be initiated was to taste death and survive, to understand that the soul itself could be remade. The Bacchae, Dionysus versus Pentheus. When Dionysus returned to Thebes, his mother's city, he came crowned in ivy and followed by Maenads. But the people had forgotten or chosen to deny him. Pentheus, young king and cousin to the god, mocked his rites as shameful. He accused women of abandoning their homes for drunken debauchery, sneered at the delicate beauty of the stranger who preached this new cult, and ordered him imprisoned. The stranger, Dionysus in disguise, only smiled. Chains fell away on their own. The palace shook as if struck by an earthquake. Still Pentheus raged, blind to the divinity before him. So the god set a trap. He invited Pentheus to see the rites with his own eyes. Vanity and suspicion overcame him, and he allowed himself to be dressed as a woman to spy on the Maenads in the mountains. There, amid torchlight and frenzy, Pentheus was mistaken for prey. Divine madness seized the women. They tore him apart. With bare hands, his own mother Agave leading the charge, believing in her delirium that he was a lion. Only when she carried his severed head back to the city did the fog lift and horror took its place. The Bacchae, Euripides' tragedy, preserves. The lesson: Dionysus may bring joy, but those who deny him meet terror. His presence is inevitable. To resist is to be undone. Dionysus and Ariadne. On the island of Naxos, beneath a sky strewn with stars, a young woman woke to betrayal. Ariadne, princess of Crete, had given Theseus the means to conquer the labyrinth and the Minotaur within. She had left behind father, kingdom, and honor for him, trusting in promises of love and marriage. Yet when dawn rose, she found herself alone, abandoned on the shore, while his sails vanished into the horizon. It was then Dionysus came. Some say he was drawn to her grief, others that fate had destined her for him all along. Where Theseus deserted, Dionysus lifted. He crowned her with a diadem radiant as the night sky, and when her mortal days ended, he cast that crown into the heavens as the constellation Corona Borealis. Through Ariadne, Dionysus revealed his gentler face, not vengeance, but redemption, not frenzy, but eternal companionship. In some versions, the story held a darker edge. Dionysus confronted Theseus directly, clouding his mind with forgetfulness so that he failed to change his sails, sending his father Aegeus into the sea in despair. The lesson was clear: mortal faithlessness could wound, but divine fidelity could transform. Where Theseus faltered, Dionysus fulfilled. Ariadne's grief became her gateway to immortality. Dionysus and the Pirates. Another tale spoke of hubris on the sea. Sailors, seeing a beautiful youth on a lonely shore, seized him, imagining ransom and profit. Only the helmsman trembled. "Release him," he begged. "There is power in his eyes." But greed deafened his companions. They bound the boy and sailed away. The air stilled, the ropes loosened, and from the ship's timbers burst vines heavy with grapes. Ivy crawled over mast and oar, twisting until the vessel groaned under the weight of green life. Then came beasts, a lion at the prow, a bear pacing the deck. Terror seized the sailors. They leapt into the sea. Most drowned, but Dionysus showed mercy. He transformed some into dolphins, condemned yet honored, to guide mortals across the waves forever. Only the helmsman was spared, untouched, rewarded for his recognition. The story reminded all who heard it that the god could appear in fragile form, but beneath the disguise lived a power older and wilder than the sea itself. Dionysus and Hephaestus. Not all his victories came in terror. When Hephaestus ensnared Hera in a golden throne of his own design, no god could persuade him to release her. Neither threats nor pleas stirred him. Years of rejection and mockery hardened him against his kin. Then Dionysus approached, not with force, but with wine and fellowship. He poured cup after cup until laughter softened the smith's bitterness, until stubbornness loosened into ease. Arm around his shoulder, Dionysus led him stumbling back to Olympus, where Hephaestus freed Hera at last. This tale taught that persuasion, laughter, and intoxication could succeed where thunderbolts and strategies failed. Power is not only storm and spear, but also song, charm, and the strange truth carried in a cup of wine. Dionysus and King Midas. Among mortals, none was marked by Dionysus more than Midas of Phrygia. The king treated Silenus with reverence when the old satyr wandered drunk into his gardens, offering him shelter for 10 days. Grateful, Dionysus granted Midas one wish. The king asked that everything he touched turn to gold. At first delight filled him. Branches became treasure, stones, coins, palace walls, radiant metal. But hunger soon clawed at him. Bread crumbled into lifeless ore, wine froze into hard amber. Worst of all, when his daughter ran to embrace him, she turned to a golden statue, shining and silent. Desperate, Midas begged the god for release. Dionysus, merciful, directed him to wash in the river Pactolus. The curse flowed into its waters, leaving behind golden sands that gleamed for ages. The tale was remembered not simply as folly, but as instruction. Dionysus gives gifts that mirror the heart. Seek joy, and you may find freedom. Seek greed, and you will taste ruin. Yet even then he tempered punishment with grace. The return to Olympus. For years, Dionysus wandered through Asia, Thrace, the islands of the Aegean, teaching his rites, gathering followers, sparking terror in kings who tried to deny him. He seemed more at home among mortals, satyrs, and nymphs than among his fellow gods. Yet the circle of his journey always bent back to Olympus. Some Olympians doubted his right to sit among them. His mortal mother tainted his blood, his rites threatened order, and Hera's hatred never cooled. Yet Zeus would not see his twice-born son denied. From his own body had Dionysus been born, and from his decree he was given his seat. So the god who had been hunted, disguised, and doubted entered the halls of Olympus not as guest, but as one of the 12. He did not bring law like Zeus, wisdom like Athena, or war like Ares. He brought the wild, the ecstatic, the truth that chaos too was divine. From that day, every play performed, every grape crushed, every ritual of transformation belonged to Olympus itself. Dionysus and Ampelos. Among his companions, none shone brighter than Ampelos, a youth whose very name meant vine. Dionysus loved him dearly, delighting in his beauty and vitality. Together, they played in fields, their laughter carrying like music. But joy in myth is always fleeting. In one version, Ampelos, reckless with youth, dared to ride a bull. The beast threw him, goring him to death. In another, the gods themselves, jealous of Dionysus's happiness, struck him down. Whatever the cause, grief consumed the god. From the youth's blood sprang the first grapevine, heavy with fruit that held both sweetness and sorrow. Pressed and fermented, it became wine, the gift Dionysus offered humanity, a liquid that carried within it memory of love and loss. Ampelos did not vanish. He lived on in every libation, every cup raised in the god's name. Misconceptions. Over time, mortals forgot the depth of Dionysus. To some, he became only a figure of drunkenness, staggering with a goblet, mocked in comedies as soft and foolish. Yet the ancients knew better. Wine was never his essence but his, symbol pointing to what lies beneath, transformation, release, the dissolving of boundaries. His rites were not mere revels. The Bacchic mysteries were carefully structured. Approach with preparation, enter frenzy, and then return renewed. They offered catharsis, healing, and a glimpse of eternity. To resist him was dangerous, but to embrace him with reverence was to step closer to the divine. Nor was he a lesser god. Though mortal-born, he was an Olympian by decree, his influence spreading across Greece, into Rome, and far beyond. To underestimate him was folly. Kings who did so, Pentheus, Lycurgus, and others, met ruin. The god was not harmless. He was liberation, but also reckoning. Legacy. Though he began as an outsider, Dionysus became one of the most enduring gods of the ancient world. In Athens, festivals such as the city Dionysia and the rural Dionysia were held in his honor. Every tragedy and comedy was first an offering. To him, the mask, the stage, the chorus, all were his domain. Theater itself, the art that shaped Western drama, was born from his rites. His cult spread across the Mediterranean and into Rome, where he was called Bacchus. There too his duality unsettled rulers. The Bacchanalia, secret rites held at night, were at times celebrated, at times suppressed, feared as threats to civic order. Yet suppression could never erase him. The longing for release, for ecstasy, for transcendence always found voice. Philosophers later used him as symbol. In Nietzsche's writings, the Dionysian represented raw vitality, set against the Apollonian order. Together, they shaped the rhythm of art, culture, and life itself. Even now, his shadow lingers. In theater, in music that dissolves the self into rhythm, In festivals that blur social lines, in the shared drink that turns strangers into companions, Dionysus walks. His gift is not only intoxication, but the paradox of existence. The joy and sorrow, creation and destruction are bound together. He is still the liberator, the twice-born, the stranger whose presence unsettles and remakes.